Hello and welcome back to the Keep Right On podcast. I'm Alex Dicken, and as ever I'm joined by Brian Dick, and we are looking ahead to the big game this weekend in the Championship against Stoke City with the Sentinel's Stoke City reporter Pete Smith. Pete, how are you doing, and thank you for coming on.
Yeah, afternoon lads. I'm doing all right. Stoke have made a pretty positive start, but this will be, I think we can all see that it's going to be a really interesting test, be a good test for Stoke. I was chatting to a couple of lads in the club last week, and they were saying that Birmingham have really caught their eye with their transfer business in the summer, and they came up strong already. So they're expecting a really tough game. So it should be an interesting gauge of where Stoke are.
It's interesting. So Stoke have played like Blues 4 games so far, 3 wins and a defeat. They lost obviously last time out at home to West Bromwich Albion 1-0. How would you assess their start to the season under Mark Robbins, Pete?
It's been positive. They've got a couple of players. Most of they made 11 signings, senior signings, but 7 or 8 of them are still yet to start a league game. So the majority of the starters have been the core of the squad from last season when they battled against relegation. But the 2 or 3 players who they've brought in have made a significant difference and seem to have hauled the standard up. Sorba Thomas has been in electric form. West Brom triple marked him last time out, which was incredible. You don't see that very often. And I don't think Stoke seemed quite surprised. They didn't know how to take advantage of it. So that must be something that they have to get used to. But they've played well. Beat a decent Derby team. Sheffield Wednesday gave them a good game, but they won pretty comfortably in the end, and then they played terrifically to win at Southampton, and they're a real threat on the counter-attack. And then they had a hard game against West Brom, and it still came down to fine lines, but although I don't think anybody could really say that West Brom probably didn't deserve to win, if one of them was going to. And the Championship's going to be so tight again this year. It seems really wide open that Stoke have got to get in the knack of coming out on the right side of those matches when it's fine lines. Although even then, there are so many different kinds of games, aren't there, in the Championship? It'd be a possession game on Saturday, I'm sure, against Birmingham. They'll be up against a possession-based team, whereas West Brom were quite physical. It was hard fought and niggly. Southampton, they had to play on the counter-attack. Derby were trying to pass it around too, although they hadn't quite gotten the hang of it. So there are lots of different challenges. And it'll be a really fascinating winter, I'm sure.
Pete, with Mark Robbins now at the helm, does it feel like there's sort of a grown-up, established Championship manager sort of hand at the tiller now, and it all feels like it makes a bit more sense, or a lot more sense, maybe?
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. Certainly, sometimes they've gone at different ends of the spectrum when they've changed managers, and Mark Robbins is certainly a different end of the spectrum from Narcís Palic, who was in charge for, I think it was 19 matches heading up towards Christmas last year. And he's come in, he's just sensible. And it just seems like somebody you can throw a problem at and he won't be overawed by it. He'll make a sensible decision. It might not get an ultimate resolution, but it'll be the best chance they've got. He'll think things through and doesn't panic. And there were times in the second half of last season when they had a lot of injuries and they were getting dragged deeper into the relegation trouble. And some of his predecessors would have panicked, and there would have been 6 or 7 changes between matches. And really, you're just shuffling chairs around on the Titanic. Whereas he kind of kept the faith in what they were doing. And it's a reassuring man at the helm of it, which is, in fact, how the chairman, John Coates, described him too. It was a relief, I think, for everybody in the club to have someone who can stick in. I mean, he's managed 800 matches before he's got to Stoke. He knows what he's doing. We can help him as much as we can, but we can just give him the support he needs, and we'll be all right with him in charge.
You've mentioned Sorba Thomas already, but just give us a quick potted rundown of the transfer window. Who's come in, who's gone out, and what effect do you think it's had, please?
Yeah, a couple of departures. I'm not sure they'll be too familiar with people who haven't been watching much of Stoke over the last 2 years. Wouter Berger was a decent player, midfielder, who had to be sold really to bankroll the incomings. Stoke City, England Youth International, has gone to PSV Eindhoven as well. But I don't think any of the others who've left there was certainly no demonstrations, there were no protests or people lying in the road to stop them driving away. There were mostly fringe players who didn't have very good availability records, and they've replaced those with players who will come in and affect the first team more often. Thomas has been the most impressive so far. Divine Mababa, who made his England under-21s debut yesterday, he's taking Jay Stansfield's place with the 21s. He looks a real prospect. Centre forward from Man City, came through at West Ham. He's got a bit of everything about him. He's not huge, but he's a decent size. His movement's terrific. And it looks like he can finish as well, and he's hungry to score. So I hope, fingers crossed, he can find a level of consistency through what is his first full season at senior level. And then there's pretty much been at every position, really. They've brought in a couple of centre-backs. Ashley Phillips came back from Spurs on loan. I think he was wanted. Birmingham, one of the clubs who wanted him, actually. I think he was on everyone's radar this summer. Maxim Tolovarov. Have I got the pronunciation right, Brian?
That's not a bad effort, yeah.
Yeah. Aaron Cresswell, who everyone will know, has spent a decade at West Ham as a steady Eddie at left-back. And a couple of interesting players from overseas. They've brought Thomas Rigo in, who scored for Slovakia on Sunday night. He's a midfielder. He might make his debut on Saturday. I mean, he's been playing in the Czech League, so we're guessing really about what he can bring. We've seen clips of him on YouTube, but from the descriptions of him, he's someone he'll get the ball, want to get on the ball, and be quite direct. He wants to pass it forwards rather than move it sideways, and I think that is quite fitting of a Stoke kind of player. Been talking to John Walters, the sporting director, about the transfer plans over the past few months. He's been recalled Torber Thomas, a typical Stoke City winger, someone who was quite aggressive in what he does, quite direct, wants to get past the defender and get crosses into the box and make things happen. And that's the kind of player who we identify with Stoke City at their best. And Walters was saying they're trying to have a clear target in mind for when they need to fill a gap in any position, whether it's a big old centre-back who doesn't muck about, or a midfielder who can progress the game rather than pass it sideways. So fingers crossed they'll have more of a Stoke City ring to the team this year than we have in the past 8 or 9 years.
And the Bet365 might have more of a Stoke City feel to it. I know recent trips with Blues, there's been lots of people coming dressed as red seats, hasn't there?
Yeah, exactly. I remember the first season after Stoke came down, we had a match at Reading, and it was me and my colleagues, Martin Spinks, were sitting in the press box, and Reading had been down for 2 or 3 years. We thought, oh gosh, this is depressing. Look at all these empty seats. Hope this doesn't happen to us. And then 8 or 9 years later, we're sitting here. But it does seem like the Stoke supporters have been really loyal, and they've been so desperate for the team to represent them, and not even win really, but just to have a good go. and that's been deprived of them a lot. The home form has been awful, but the fans have kept coming, and there'll be a decent crowd on Saturday, and it should be a good atmosphere. I think it'll be a really intriguing fixture.
Yeah, to be fair, Pete, I was looking at the average attendances in the league earlier, and Stoke are up by about 3,000 from last season. So it does show that they clearly believe in what Mark Robbins is trying to do. Remember Mark Robbins at Coventry in his last 2 seasons, where they finished in the playoffs full season. They finished in the playoffs, then came just short, making that FA Cup semi-final. They were a 3-5-2 in the first season when they finished in the playoffs and lost to Luton, and then they became a 4-2-3-1 the following season. How does Stoke set up, and what do they look like, and what should Blues be wary of?
Yeah, it's a 4-2-3-1. He's probably got the players actually in his squad to go with wing backs if he wanted to, but that's not been on the agenda really at all. It's plan A and plan B, I think, the 4-2-3-1. At the moment, he's been giving Bae Jun Ho, who was a bit of we thought he was going to be a rising star a couple of years ago. He's a South Korean international. He's been trusted with this number 10 role, and he's not quite clicked there yet. He's played on the left mostly during his time at Stoke, but he's always looked like he'd be natural in the middle. But for whatever reason, it's just not quite working. And in reserve, they've got Jamie Donnelly, who spent last year at Leyton Orient, who you will have seen a bit of, I'm sure. And he's given a few glimpses that he's got something about him at this level, and he can make a difference. So I think he's waiting for his chance to really stake a claim for that shirt. And I think that'll be a key position to get right if he can then feed Divine Mbama and Sorba Thomas and Millie Manouf on the right as well. So Stoke have made a good start, but there's still work to do. I think that there is certainly scope and expectation that they'll improve over the next few weeks and months as the new signings come into the team and as they start to settle down a little bit.
Yeah, I think you've already talked about him 4 or 5 times, but who's the danger man for Stoke that Blues need to be wary?
I better not go for Sorba Thomas. I mean, if you've seen Stoke's highlights this year, he's been really exciting to watch, and I'm sure Chris Davies will have a plan for him on Saturday. Mbama is tricky in the box as well. He'll be good to watch, and it'll be interesting to see what Robbins does with midfield. If Rigo comes in or not. He's kept with the same midfield in the past 3 matches, and I've just got a feeling that he'll might mix it up a little bit. And one player who's been in there is Lewis Baker, who often you sometimes forget he's playing a little bit. You always think he can be more evolved, but all of a sudden he'll just pop up and score. He'll just get the ball 25 yards out, and he's got about as good a shot from long range as I've seen in 35 years watching Stoke. He's got a terrific shot on him.
Presumably, Pete, Ben Pearson is suspended and Sam Gallagher is injured. Is that right?
Well, I mean, you've thrown muck and hit one. You've thrown darts and got one in. Sam Gallagher is injured, yeah. And sooner or later, we're going to have to see him and see where he's up to. It's been an ongoing story since he joined Stoke from Blackburn. Pearson isn't suspended yet. I'm not sure how many bookings. He's probably 1 card away, isn't he, without checking. He's come out to the midfield actually in the last couple of matches, and it'll be interesting to see if he gets thrown back in. As I say, that midfield still feels like it's taking shape a little bit, and it'll be interesting to look back in 5 or 6 weeks' time when we've got more of an idea of what Robbins is actually thinking his best 3 is going to be.
And Thomas is playing on the left, Sorba Thomas, is he?
Yeah, he's been playing on the left. They have switched a couple of times during matches, but he did an interview with the Welsh press last week talking about the left wing being his favourite position and just having a licence to attack. He's a really hard worker, strong, big lad, and quick and skillful. So, yeah, there's a lot to like.
Pete, we're still trying to figure out Lewis Koumas. We've only seen 2 games of him so far, but what was he like at Stoke last season? Because you've got a greater kind of body of work to look at there. He played 30 odd games in the league. So what was he like at Stoke last year, and what can we expect from him when he gets his feet under the table?
I'm in exactly the same position as you. I think I did a piece with you, didn't I, when he signed, saying that nobody can really tell what he's going to be yet. It's a gamble really still to know how much he's going to do this year. I think I made the point last year that if Stoke were going to sign him at all last year, it should have been on a 2-year loan. It didn't feel like a 1-year loan. You were never really going to get the best out of him. He was a bit too inconsistent. There were flashes when he could change matches, and he had some great movement and great speed in the final third. And he's desperate to make things happen. But then there were other matches that passed him by, and he had a habit of losing concentration off the ball. Stoke had a really good game at Coventry, and they really went toe-to-toe with them. But Koumas was guilty of losing his man defensively. It might have been a couple of times. And I think he got a rollicking from Mark Robbins that day. And he was taken out of the starting lineup for a while after that. I think he'll be better for the experience, and he's desperate to play and desperate to kick on with his career, which is great. And nobody can be quite sure how soon or how high he'll go up. But there's a player in there, but I just don't know quite what to expect from him either.
It's impossible for us to say, Alex, really, on what we've seen of him so far, but I'm just wondering how he's going to affect a championship match. But yeah, as Pete said, there are
different levels though, aren't there? There are some matches where he'll come in. He had a couple of games last year against teams down the lower end like Cardiff, and he was man of the match. And you just thought, wow, I wish he could play like that every week.
What with his ball carrying, or
yeah. And he's just willing to take people on and try to make things happen. but then sometimes he could be bullied, and it feels like you need to spend a lot of time in the gym as well. To just, I wish that he could look at someone like Silver Thomas and see how he's able to affect games consistently, and say, oh, that's the kind of build I need to be a proper player in this league. Never mind the one above.
Yeah, just before we kind of wrap on Stoke and move on to Blues and how they're going to approach the game, Pete, give us a little bit of help, please. Where are the weaknesses in Stoke setup? Where can Blues get at them?
That's an interesting question. West Brom controlled midfield last time out, and I think Chris Davies will have seen that. And Lewis Baker ended up dropping too deep. Tsuki Seko was moved out of position a bit too much, and they left a bit too much space in front of Stoke's back four. Still, West Brom didn't have many chances, but you just felt like they always had that control of that key area. And I think that would be the area that Mark Robbins is looking to address and sort out. And probably, for Saturday, I wouldn't be surprised if there were a couple of changes in there. But even then, it'll be a new look Stoke midfield, I'm sure. So there'll be a chance for Birmingham to really try to take hold of the game in that place.
It's interesting, that is, because coming on to our own selection headaches, Brian, or ones for Chris Davies that we're going to debate. Midfield's quite a big one for me, I think. Just to give people a rundown of what's happening this week with the international players. So Peck Sung-ho, South Korea play Mexico in the early hours of Wednesday morning. So is he going to be back Thursday, train on Friday? So he's not going to get much time at all to kind of get into the swing of things and prepare for this match, other than by video analysis and things like that. Bright Asai Samuel's Nigeria player World Cup qualifier in South Africa on Tuesday evening, and Lewis Kumas plays for Wales against Canada on Tuesday evening, and Willem Willemsen plays against France for Iceland on Tuesday evening as well. So probably overlooking Kumas and Willemsen a little bit, even though they started the last game. Asai Samuel has started every game right back so far. Blues have the option of obviously playing Ethan Laird there and bringing Alex Cochrane in at left back, as we expect them to do. Peck is the big one though, Brian. Do you play him after the international break, or do you look at Tommy Doyle and say, this is what we signed you for?
Yeah, just before we go on to that, there's obviously, a small question mark over Damari Gray and his shoulder, the injury picked up against Leicester, and Jay Stansfield and the ankle. So those are the other sort of two doubts. Peck, if I remember rightly from last season, Alex, Chris Davies didn't seem to factor in the travel or the mileage that Peck was putting in too massively, did he? So I think he'd want Peck in his side away at Stoke.
No, I'm actually just trying to rack my brain to think of the games that Blues had after the international breaks last season, and I really should have done it.
Absolute hospital pass there. So if you're asking me to talk about Peck and Doyle, listen.
Sorry, just to cut, Peck will be flying back with Bejon Howe, the Stoke player, so that'd be interesting.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So what will Robbins do with that? As he inclined?
I think he'll take this chance to freshen up and put Jerry Donnelly in because of that. Okay. I think they're in Nashville tonight, aren't they? South Korea.
Yeah. I mean, I've said on a previous podcast that I'd like to see more of Tommy Doyle. We haven't really scratched the surface of what he can bring. Arrived on loan from Wolves, where we have seen him is slightly more advanced, maybe as a number 10 sort of role, a left-sided number 10. I'd like to see Doyle further back in the ball, mate, in the team, on the ball, with Awat, and maybe having a bit more playmaking responsibility. So if Davis does make the decision to, be cautious with Peck and watch the mileage, I'd be perfectly happy to see Doyle playing that deeper role, because I think he's got the technical ability to do that. I wouldn't necessarily say if it was Iwata that needed replacing, whether there'd be enough physicality between Peck and Doyle to make them an ideal partnership. But I can see Iwata doing Doyle's kicking and Doyle having a bit more freedom to play there. So I'd actually be quite up for that, I think, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think I would. And like you said, I don't think Doyle replaces Iwata, because I think he's too, I'm going to use the word lightweight, but not the same physical build as Iwata, is he? So Iwata is so key in there because of his physique. If it depends how much Peck plays really in that game against Mexico. He played the full 90 of their first game against the USA. So if he plays the full 90 again, it's probably going to be difficult for him then to fly home, which is probably about an 9 hour flight and then go straight into a starting 11 on limited training. So I probably would go for Dahl because Chris Davies is going to have had these players on the training ground over these last 2 weeks, and he's going to have been able to prepare for Stoke with a lot of the players who could start the game. We've put together a starting 11 which we'll go through. Most of those players have been here over the last 2 weeks.
So is Doyle in that position getting ahead of Mark Leonard, who's obviously more of a natural, number 6 kind of player? He probably does, doesn't he?
I think he has to, yeah, because you don't sign a player on loan from Wolves with a view to making it permanent without, giving him chances when they come up. And this is his first chance to start a championship game. He's surely got to play, hasn't he? Otherwise, why did you sign him?
He's a cracking player. He's been brilliant every time I've seen him, Tommy Doyle. Yeah. From the youth team days to when he's been on loan, I think he's been great. I think he's going to be, he'll be in the first team, I'm sure, and be one of the first names on the team sheet before too long.
And then the other question, Brian, is do you shift Ethan Laird across to cope with Sorba Thomas, who Pete's mentioned, as a right back in his normal position, rather than have Bright Asai Samuel there, probably again on someone else's time zone, and bring Alex Cochrane in left back?
I absolutely do. I think that's quite a straightforward decision for Davis to make. Asai Samuel, he's probably, is he better going forward than Ethan Laird? I think he probably is, isn't he? Although Laird's had an effect, albeit on the left side, standing in for Alex Cochrane. If Sorba Thomas is the danger man, as he clearly is, and Ryan Mason at West Brom thought he was, I think I'm going with fresh legs, 2 weeks worth of preparation for that challenge, and going with Laird, with Asai Samuel to come off the bench potentially when there's a bit more space.
Yeah, and Pete mentioned earlier about West Brom tripling up on Sorba Thomas. I don't think Blues will quite do that, but I do think, when you think back to how they played Louis Barry in League One when he was at Stockport last season, it was kind of Bielik, who was at right back at the time, would obviously mark him and go towards him, but Awata was covering the space inside every single time, wasn't he? I do think it will be something like that. If Sorba Thomas wants to come inside, then I think Awata will be there. And if he wants to go outside, obviously you've got Laird or Asai Samuel if he does play. So do you want me to run through an 11 that we've put together? There's a couple of other kind of maybes in the attack that we can talk about.
When you say we've put it together, you actually mean you've put it together, yeah.
I've put it together, but we're singing on the same hymn sheet, Brian.
Oh, we? Okay.
So Allsop in goal, Laird right back, Neumann and Clark at centre back, Alex Cochrane back in at left back, Awata and Doyle in midfield, going off what we said about Peck earlier.
Yeah.
Patrick Roberts into the attack on the right, Marvin Duksh in the middle as the 10. Damari Gray providing his fit off the left, and Stansfield again providing his fit through the middle as the striker. The two players I was talking about, Patrick Roberts and Marvin Duksh. Roberts has had a full pre-season, has played a game, 2 games for Sunderland this season, played a game, Carabao Cup tie against Huddersfield, I think it was last week, or the week before last, sorry. So you presume he's going to be fit to play straight away. Obviously the big question mark is over Marvin Duksh's fitness and whether he's ready to start a game.
Yeah, I mean, Roberts is an easy drop in, isn't he? Presumably, Pete, you've seen Roberts play well against Stoke for Sunderland.
He's won a couple of games against Stoke, I'm sure.
Yeah,
it's a good team going through that. It's a good team.
I was going to say actually, because one of the reasons why I would put Duksh into the 11 is because of his height. Blues are losing Willemsen from the attack, who's 6'4", replaced him with Patrick Roberts, who's 5'7", so they probably need another aerial presence in there. And Duksh brings them to 3 players over 6 foot. How, in years gone by, Stoke have been absolute, a beast on set pieces. What are they like nowadays? I guess they're not quite Tony Pulis-esque.
They've still got this reputation. It's 12 years since Pulis left. Some absolute duffers in charge since then. Completely ignoring Stoke's reputation, buying players who weren't fit to wear the shirt, certainly not fit to market set pieces. But the idea, as I was talking about earlier, is that they're trying to get back towards that kind of team. They played the last game of last season. They played at Derby and drew, and it was a really big team that they put out, probably the biggest that they could have done with the squad. And talking to people inside the club, they were saying that that's the kind of Stoke we should be. Let's make sure when we bring in players that they've got a bit of an edge on the team in the tunnel, and the players have come in have got an average height of about 6'2" or something. So yeah, that tells you something. They're still they haven't. Thomas is great at set pieces as well, and Aaron Cresswell can take a good corner. They haven't scored from a set piece yet, I don't think, but that should be one of the threats this season, more than has been for the past 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, that's why, Brian, I'd throw, if Ducks can get through a 60 even, I'd throw him in, because you've at least got that extra body on defensive set piece, haven't you?
Yeah, you've probably talked me into this, actually. When I first saw this 11, I just thought madness, but going through it, yeah, Roberts, as I said, drops straight in. If Gray's fit, then yeah, obviously, he's been outstanding so far. If he's not fit, I wonder if, and then if Stansfield is fit, then you pick Kyogo and drop Stansfield onto that side, maybe. No Kyogo. I'd like to see Kyogo play, but I suppose if I'm changing a player out of there and it's only sort of enforced rather than selection, I could probably expect Kyogo to play up front instead of Stansfield based on injury. But we'll, as we said before we turned on, we are recording this before the press conference, aren't we? So you'll have your press conference on later this week, and we'll find out more about Stansfield's availability. But yeah, I'd be making changes for the sake of it. There, it's a plausible 11.
That's decided then. Thank you very much. This is the start of probably quite a significant 5-game stretch for Blues before the international break. Stoke away, 3rd place in the league. Swansea at home, 7th in the league. Coventry away, 5th in the league. Sheffield Wednesday, 23rd at home, and Wrexham to finish 15th in the league away from home. Brian, what does a good return look like from those matches?
15's not a bad return, is it? I think realistically, I would probably take a draw at Stoke now. I've got a feeling, Pete, that not many of the games at the Bet365 between Stoke and Birmingham do end in draws. It always feels like there's a winner, a 1-0 win, or is that right?
I think Birmingham got a decent record there. I was there for the 7-0 game in '98, which was torturous.
Happy days. Yeah,
incredible. It was Dali Adebola running the show, and then there was a game right at the start of Stephen Schumacher's reign as Stoke manager when Stoke played all right, Birmingham won, and then Schumacher had a month where it completely fell apart in reaction to that. So yeah,
I've just called it up, Pete. So last season Blues won 2-1. Season before
they're in League One last season.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's the second time you've dropped that in. Yes, January 2024, Blues won 2-1 with goals from Stansfield and Bakuna. November 2022, Blues won 2-1 with goals from Scott Hogan and Harley Dean. It was a 2-2 in February 2022 and a 1-1 going back to 2020. So yeah, I'm just going to go back. Yeah,
how many different managers have both sides had in those 4 games? It might be 8.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, So certainly this is Davis's first view of Stoke City. I'm thinking Karanka, Bowyer, Eustace,
Mowbray had the last one.
Maybe even Mowbray. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you asked me about points, didn't you? So draw at Stoke. You want to win your home games, so that's hopefully a win against Swansea. Coventry is difficult. It really is. They are absolutely flying at the moment. So I don't like to tip losses, but it's going to be difficult to get anything at Coventry. Sheffield Wednesday, you'd hope for a home win. Wrexham away. That's difficult now with all their signings, isn't it? 9 is fantastic, I would say, from those. 8 is good. Because that's your 2 points a game. Anything less than 8, and you're probably looking at, okay, well, how have the performances been? What would you say?
No, I'd say 8 looks good. The Coventry game, like you said, Brian, is the one I'm looking at kind of with most trepidation. The Wrexham game was a bit of an aerial.
Is that because you've got to pay to get in?
I would be if I had to pay to get in good goals.
£45 to go and watch Coventry away.
Absolutely great. I've been reading your pieces on that. Amazing. How can they justify that?
£35 for children. Fair play to Wrexham, actually. We've been quite fans of Wrexham on recent podcasts, but Wrexham have done under 14s for £10 when Blues go there in a couple of, at the end of the month. So yeah, fair play to them, because Coventry's is ludicrous. But yeah, I hate to say it, but Coventry is probably the one I fear most. I think Blues 8 points would be a good return from those games. And going on to my next little point on the running order, I think that leaves Blues maybe on the cusp of the playoffs, just inside the playoffs at the end of this stretch of games, and that's 9 games. That's normally where you can kind of tell where you are or where you're going to be, I think. Yeah,
I think so, and that feels consistent with the way they've started as well. But on a previous podcast, we spoke about their XG4 being quite high and their XG against being quite low, and Blues are slightly underperforming in both. If those variables can sort of level out a little bit, then Blues will be sort of in the top 6 or fringes.
Really, at the moment, though, isn't it? Because everyone's played different levels of opposition, so it's just those kind of XG things. You just can't read too much into them.
So, Pete, Stoke have got QPR away, Norwich at home, Middlesbrough away, Blackburn away. I think that's it before the next. Birmingham, isn't it? But it starts off with Birmingham, obviously. QPR away, Norwich at home, Middlesbrough and Blackburn away before the next international break.
I think very quickly in the Championship, you can look at the fixture list and you can think, where are we going to get the next win from? But very quickly, you can also think there's nothing on here that we're frightened about. Yeah. And at the moment, Stoke are looking at the fixture list and think, bring it on. They can give anyone a decent game, I think, this season. Well, that's what we're coming to the conclusion. You can ask me again in a month, I might tell you something different. But at the moment, there's a bit of positivity around, and they'll look forward to every challenge. There'll be a lot of different ones, I'm sure.
So, Alex, final thing. This isn't on the running order. I'm going to give both of you another hospital pass. One takeaway. Doesn't have to be Birmingham City. Just one takeaway or anything that's caught your attention from the Championship season so far. And the same question to you, Pete. I'll give you the thinking time as you're the guest. Alex.
Thank you.
Oh, I think the last couple of years, or last season at least, there were 2 teams that got 100 points, weren't there? And I think Burnley got to 100 points. I'm trying to think who was the season. What was the season in between that? Who won the league then? Leicester and Ipswich got very close to 100 points, didn't they? One of them getting 98. So I don't think there's going to be a team this year, or 2 teams, that are going to get to that kind of... Don't tell me you think Stoke will.
Sorry, I'll carry on.
I don't think there's going to be a team or 2 teams that are going to get to that level. We were talking about 2 points per game on a previous podcast, Brian, and I think that's probably what you're looking at for automatic promotion this year. I think there's going to be maybe 10 teams who are going to be in the conversation for the playoff places with about 5 or 6 games to go. It just feels really tight. We've mentioned the tight margins in Blues games, winning both games by 1 goal so far, drawing against Ipswich 1-1, losing again to really, really fine margins against Leicester. I just feel like the games are so tight. Pete mentioned Stoke games being tight as well. I don't think there's going to be a lot in this league. There are so many teams you look at already and think, I wasn't expecting much from you at the start of the season, but suddenly here you are in 5th position. I'm looking at Bristol City or something thinking, I thought you might be down there after losing your manager and some of those players. But no, there you are. Here you are again. You could actually be a contender. Swansea look much better this season again. There are teams that you didn't...
Stoke are winning games.
Exactly. Stoke are in the conversation.
It's been a tough decade. I know. You've had your fair share of misery as well.
Sorry, Pete, go on, Alex. Have you finished?
No, that's just my point. I don't think there's going to be a runaway leader or runaway leaders this time. I think it's going to be tight, and there are going to be a lot of teams in that conversation. I think Blues and Stoke are probably going to be 2 of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Pete, Championship-related observation.
Well, carrying on from that, I think momentum will carry teams a long way in this division this season, because games are so tight. If you're going into them with confidence, and you're, especially if you're a team that can find a way to make as few mistakes as possible, then you'll go a long way. And I think if you can find a consistency with that, do the basics right, then you'll be around the conversation. a long way into the season.
Yeah, mine is the teams that came down from the Premier League all look get-atable, don't they? And I know it's wrong to draw conclusions after so few games, but you've seen Stoke win away at Southampton. We've seen Blues lose at Leicester, but there was nothing in that game other than 2 quality moments. And Ipswich have stuttered. I suspect they will settle down and sort of start to hit their play to what they are fairly soon. But I'm not anointed.
Just before that Southampton game, I spoke to you, Brian, and you were saying, "Give me your opinion on Will Still after you played there." And it looked like, I might be reading it wrong, but he looked like an inexperienced manager at times, and he was didn't seem to be quite. It just didn't quite seem right. And maybe he's coming to a big job and he'll settle down soon enough. But it was a good time for Stoke to play Southampton, I thought. It'll be interesting to see which way they go in the next few weeks.
Indeed. So that brings an end with every other club in the Championship on a white knuckle ride. We come to Birmingham City and Stoke City for a bit of stability and grown-ups in the room. So it was ever thus, wasn't it? Pete, thank you very much for your time.
Cheers,
Alex, thank you very much for your time as well. And it's keep right on from at least 2 of us.